Joe Budden clowns and hates on Flip and Melyssa Ford's new shows. That's right, in a new episode of Joe's Patreon, Flip and Ford are ridiculed for their shows and how they're struggling in their recent premieres. Now, this all happened on a Patreon episode called Bear Mountain, so check it out. This starts off with them clowning Flip, and then they roast Melyssa Ford, and after Ish says he wouldn't appear on Melyssa Ford's podcast, but you need to stay tuned to the end of this video to hear all of that. But let's start off with how they immediately started roasting Flip. Flip was off on this day of recording, but he decided to come in. Flip gets 1 day off and a Patreon episode off per month. When Flip arrives, he takes over the show, completely bogarting the conversation. So then it pivots to Flip saying he wasn't happy with the first episode. Flip says that Parks told him that the show should be different next time and that they should have a mix of different topics and live antics similar to the old improper improv. Joe then says he knew Flip was super upset because he didn't tweet or say anything after improper aired. Now, that day Flip was quiet on social media, and I'm guessing if the show was successful, he would have tooted his own horn. Flip then says he wanted to spend more time speaking to Shampoo, and the therapist bit turned the show into something he didn't want to do. I think everybody watching Improper Improv knew Flip did not like the therapist bit, so it makes sense that he would say that. Flip then does a heavy contradiction himself and says he wanted Improper Improv to be how it was before with him speaking to Joe. Yet all I ever heard was how Flip didn't want Joe to be on the show. Flip is a master manipulator, and I think he's doing some manipulation here. The whole time, last season of Improper Improv, all I heard was Flip say, I want to do the show by myself. I want to be without Joe, so I can see how, I just want creative control. And now he's doing a complete 180 and saying that he wants Joe there. And even if he does want Joe back, the optics would be crazy, because if Joe returns and the pod is way better, Flip's value is gone out the door. All of his leverage, all of the things he says that he brings to the network doesn't necessarily matter, because without Joe, he looks like a bit of a mess. Flip then says that he wanted Improper Improv to have more structure and that he doesn't want it to be a clown show. However, that doesn't make sense to me, because his new set looks like that of a clown show. But hey, go figure. Flip then says the numbers are good, but that he didn't like how it was executed. Now, are the numbers good? I do notice that the numbers were around 120,000 around the time of this recording. But with the way Flip speaks on his podcast, Improper Improv with the cursing, I don't know how monetizable Improper Improv is. So the numbers actually got to be measured by way of donation. And with that being said, I don't think that show was the most monetizable platform, if you ask me. Joe then says he loves seeing people fail because it builds character. I think what Joe is saying, that he likes that Flip struggled his first episode, because now he has to go back to the drawing board and think of something new. Joe then says Flip and Ian stepped on Shammy and Flip's moment and that he didn't like the doctor bit. Now, this is something I agreed with. I felt like the show probably should have leaned more into the arrival of Shammy, and I think they might have made a mistake. Maybe had they marketed the show as the return of Shammy and Flip versus trying to make it like a big surprise, I think it would have felt more like appointment viewing. But instead they try to do that thing that people do on stream now where, you never know who might come by. But maybe now it's time to go back to the old days and just say, Shammy's coming through for the first time ever. Him and Flip are going to talk about their issues. It's going to go crazy. Maybe that's some type of feedback that I think would really help the show. Flip then says he hated the doctor bit again, especially when the doctor made a joke about Flip possibly being gay because of his anger issues. And I think it was a joke about how Flip anger is so suppressed. It has to be because of some type of feelings for men. I think that's what the doctor was saying. Flip then says he wanted to speak to Shammy more again, and it's revealed that the therapist bit was something Melyssa Ford suggested, and Melyssa Ford was supposed to be present for the episode. Now, why wasn't Melyssa Ford present for the episode? Did Flip not want Melyssa Ford on the show? Because I noticed on Spaces, Joe said, hey, Ford was down to be there. How come you didn't use your resources? I don't know. I think something petty is happening, and I think it's coming from Flip. Then Flip references the numbers again and reiterates that he wasn't happy. I don't know. I think that's a way of Flip to kind of deal with the fact that Improper Improv episode 1 of season 2 was a big mess. Oh, the numbers was good. The numbers was this. The numbers was that. But I think the first season's episode was a lot more. And I think with YouTube, once, after that first week, things kind of stall out. So I actually think the numbers wasn't as good as what Flip is suggesting. Flip then highlights how Lansky and Nicole didn't perform how he wanted them to, but I think Flip is using them as a scapegoat because I didn't get the sense that Flip coached up Lansky or Nicole. I feel like he just threw them into the water and was like, oh, sink or swim. But it's upon him to say, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. I want you to do this and that. The only reason Shammy was successful was because he's been on so many shows. He knows how to deal with situations. He's a man of a certain age. And he's been on the Howard Stern show. He's been on the Star show. He's been on Flip's show. He just knows how to deal with all of the distractions. But Flip did not set up Lansky and Nicole for success. And that's a reflection of him as a leader. Then Joe pivots to critiquing Melyssa Ford's first episode of Hot and Bothered. This was great, guys, so stay tuned. Flip pulls up the episode and notes that it is only 29 minutes long. And Ford gets defensive by highlighting that it was just, an intro podcast. It wasn't really supposed to be a long episode. And Flip then does something diabolical by playing the pod on air. Now, I must say, Ford looks really uncomfortable with what Flip is doing. He's essentially ridiculing her for the choices she made with the 29-minute pod and also how she introed her first pod. Then they start getting into topics that M4 covered on her first episode. One of the biggest ones was the trials and tribulations of a dry vagina as a woman ages. Yes, that's right. Melyssa Ford talked about how it doesn't feel like an ocean down there as the years start to pile up. And she even talked about how, sex toys are needed to upkeep an aging vagina. Flip then suggests that Ford should have a co-host, but Ford says that she doesn't want to deal with any co-host and refuses to deal with one. And Joe then makes a joke about, how she doesn't want to deal with any co-hosts who have degrees. Now, this is obviously a reference to S, who herself had a nutritional degree and was supposed to be the initial co-host of the now defunct Menopod podcast. Flip then says something interesting and says Ish could be a co-host, and the idea is that Ish and Melyssa Ford was supposed to be a podcast that Joe was going to create, but Ish never wanted to do that. Now, if you don't remember, Melyssa Ford said that Ish and her were to do a pod, but Ish wasn't really down with the idea. The only reason we know this is because Melyssa Ford went on her live.
No more Ish and Mel pod. Wait a minute. How do you even know that was even being contemplated? And I'll say it right now. It ain't because of me.
And said this. M4 then asked Ish if a pod with her and Ish would have been good. Ish looks uncomfortable, kind of like he was hinting that he would never do an episode with Melyssa Ford. Then Flip broaches an awkward subject by saying if Ish and Melyssa Ford ever did a pod, Ish should get 70% of the profits because he's gone more viral than Ford. M4 does not agree, and this leads to an interesting back and forth between Melyssa Ford and Flip. I really think these two don't like each other like that, and if they do, it's very surface level, and beneath that surface is some petty stuff going on because Flip brings up how Ford only goes viral accidentally, highlighting the Cameron situation.
Because I was going to address it when I felt like addressing it. But the reason I addressed it yesterday is because it's like, yo, you say that foul, because that's some foul to say. Man felt like that's like, and the times being for you to make them type of allegations, don't know what the you talking about.
Now that's kind of weird for Flip to highlight because that was a crazy moment for Ford. It unleashed a lot of trauma on her, and for Flip to highlight that, to me, indicates that he's trying to hurt Melyssa Ford, whether it be intentionally or subconsciously. Ford then fires back and says she doesn't count how many times she goes viral, which is very much what Flip does. Flip is a algorithm obsessed individual. He is gonna count how many times he's gone viral. He's gonna remember that whole Joe Budden and Flip narrative when Joe Budden was clowning Flip for not going viral. He knew that would bother Flip because that is something he uses to measure his value as a content creator. Then Flip says Ish is one of the most popular people who have ever joined the pod. Now, that was kind of divisive by Flip. Like, why is he saying that? There's got to be an ulterior motive. And it's kind of true. I think if you had to rank the most popular people to ever join the pod, it would be Rory and Maul, obviously, number one. And then Ish would be that third slot. But why is Flip saying that? Is he trying to create division? Then Flip keeps taking shots at the show that Melyssa Ford first launched, Hot and Bothered. And Ford looks frustrated, kind of like, hey man, this is just my first episode. Why are you making this a thing? They then ask Ish if he would be on Melyssa Ford's pod, and he says he's not sure. Now, I think Ish and Melyssa Ford have issues, and Ish doesn't necessarily want to align himself with Melyssa Ford in any way, but it's crazy that he wouldn't even do a guest appearance. And then the conversation about Flip and Melyssa Ford's first show ends with them saying that they're skipping the next week. So Melyssa Ford is skipping the second episode because it's election week, which makes no sense. Like, why can't you drop during election week? And then Flip says that he's skipping, I don't know, he doesn't even say why he's skipping the second week. So that's right, both shows are going on hiatus for 1 week. I've literally never seen an instance where a show premieres and they go on a break immediately. To me, that indicates half-stepping. To me, that indicates you're not taking things serious. It's just a bad idea, especially if you said that, hey man, this is going to be a weekly show. It's not like you said it was going to be bi-weekly, so why are you skipping the second week already? I don't know. And then on Spaces, Flip would go on and kind of articulate how frustrated, he was with the first episode of Improper Improv.
I just don't listen. I don't want to say anything. I'm going to mute after this. I just feel like you're doing a little bit of fibbing up here. That you had no control. I mean, if anything, you had the only control.
No, I didn't have. You think I would have allowed that therapist to ask me gay questions? Yes or no?
Allowed you to.
Do you think I would allow the therapist to ask me gay questions? Yes or no? Like, yes, you would allow it, or no, you wouldn't. I just need knowing me. Do you think that I would have put that there?
For the sake of content, yes.
You're lying. You know I wouldn't have did that because we have conversations all the time about it,
But
and you know I
don't,
don't like that stuff.
Flip,
He
don't
just
that take
lied.
Flip, don't that
But he
take
just
away?
lied.
I
He
know,
just
I
lied. Now
know, I
I'm
know,
tight.
I know, nah.
Now I'm tight now because now you lying
No,
on
listen,
the.
listen. Don't you think that take away from the improv thing
I
that you
don't give
always
a.
have? But then
Now
it's
I'm
the wrong
upset now because
name.
Ian, my man, he just came and lied on me. Joe Ian.
You guys all shit on the therapist, but I genuinely feel like that could have been the shining moment of the first episode.
Ian, stop, Ian. But Joe, how you telling my man Ian to change the name when you backed out the first place? Out of here. Don't be
Ian, why you
telling
keep? Why does he keep saying I backed out of something that's his?
Because he needs a crutch, buddy.
Yeah, like
He
dude.
needs to use you as a crutch
I don't
because
need I don't need no well y'all can say that, but listen, at the end of the day, if things don't go well the next time, if things don't go the way it's supposed to go, watch what I'm gonna do.
Yo,
Since we
But
yo,
playing
Flip,
around,
they
stop
since
jumping
have
I
my
to
need a
man
go
crutch,
too, yo.
well
Stop,
hold on,
stop,
hold on,
because
stop
hold on.
jumping
you're
my nigga too, yo.
Since I need a crutch, watch what I do. I've been playing ball to be cool, but watch what I'm gonna turn up now. Now I'm back on all that being nice. Don't respect niceness.
That's right.
Y'all don't respect niceness, none of you.
That's right.
Joe, Ian,
Tell him,
y'all don't
Flip.
respect nice.
And I noticed a lot of things where Flip was contradicting himself. He said that he wanted, like he said on the Patreon episode, that he wanted Joe to be there. It's just, you didn't want Joe to be there. And then Ian even got so frustrated. He was like, yo, we gave you everything you wanted and you're still complaining. So Flip asked for the control. He got the control. And then when he gets the control, he does a horrible job of harnessing it. And on top of that, he says he's taking accountability. It's not real accountability. It's this manufactured, contrived accountability that allows him to control the narrative about how he was the reason episode 1 flopped. He was the one who said he came in shortly before the show started. I didn't hear him talk about how he coached Lansky and Nicole. He just said they didn't know what they was doing. Well, they didn't know what they was doing because you expected them to do exactly what you wanted them to, but you didn't even guide them. So overall, this whole thing lands on Flip, and I'm not going to be fooled by his attempts to say that he's taking accountability when he's really not. And the reason the show flopped is because he tried to wrestle control away from Ian and Joe, only to realize that he wasn't the leader he thought he was. But let me know what you think. Do you feel like Melyssa Ford or Queen's Flip had a better premiere? I think Flip Show was more entertaining. I think Melyssa Ford actually is planning the show better in terms of like setting up meetings, meeting with people. But I just doubt her ability to entertain. So I think Flip is in a better position. I could be wrong though. I have to see how Ford does with guests. And Joe Budden himself, he looks miffed at what both of these people are doing. I think he's surprised at how lackadaisical they appear, and it's just a terrible execution. You would think these people being in the entertainment industry would kind of execute things a little bit more with the way they talk about the show and how things should go. They would know what to do, but guess not. All right, y'all, that's my video for today. Once again, this happened on the Patreon called Bear Mountain. It was something that dropped today, so you really need to tune in and tap in. This is just my thoughts of the conversation. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.